Hi, it's Benny the Bookie once again, and today I would like to review All the Sinners Bleed by S.A. Cosby. This is 338 pages and is published by Flatiron Books. And let me just start off. It's a great book. I really enjoyed this book. It was a very quick read, and I like to tell you about it. And hopefully you'll find this interesting, and maybe you'll give this author a chance and read this book. I very much enjoyed it. So, the synopsis is that the novel begins with our main character, Titus Crown, former FBI agent, and now the first black sheriff of Caron County, Virginia. And he's taking a call that no sheriff in any community wants to take. There's an active shooter at the high school. There's only one victim, but it's a beloved high school teacher, Mr. Spearman. Now, the shooter is a former student that is fatally shot by Titus's deputies. This leads to horrifying secrets that are discovered during the investigation of the shooting, and to an unthinkable discovery of what is found under an old weeping willow tree, and even more horrific realization that there may be a serial killer among them, and it has been among them for many, many years. Now, I could go over the main characters. We have Titus Crown. I mean, he's sheriff of this small community, southern community. But I really think my favorite character, and I think it is a character in itself, is Caron County. And I like to read from the author. He really almost does create this character in the county itself, the community itself of Caron County. So this is the prologue. Caron County was founded in bloodshed and darkness, literally and figuratively. Even the name is enveloped in shadows and morbidity. Legend has it the name of the county was supposed to be Charlotte or Charles County. The town elders waited too late, and those names were already taken by the time they decided to incorporate their fledgling encampment. As the story goes, they just moved their finger down the list of names until they settled on Caron. Those men, weathered in white leather, with hands like splitting mauls, bestowed the name on their new town with no regard to its macabre nature. Or perhaps they just liked the name because a river flowed through the county and emptied into Chesapeake, like the river Styx. Who knows? Who could know the thoughts of those long dead men? What is known is that in 1805, in the dead of night, a group of white landowners, chafing at the limits of their own manifest destiny, set fire to the last remaining indigenous village on the teardrop-shaped peninsula that would become Caron County. Those who escaped the flames were brought down by muskets, with no regard to age, gender, or infirmity. That was the first of many tragedies in the history of Caron. The cannibalism of the winter of 1853, the malaria outbreak of 1901, United Daughters of the Confederacy picnic poisoning of 1935, the Danforth family murder-suicide of 1957, the tent revival baptismal drownings of 1968, and on and on. The soil of Caron County, like most towns and counties in the South, was sown with generations of tears. They were places where violence and mayhem were celebrated as the pillars of a pioneering spirit every Founders' Day in the county square. Blood and tears, violence and mayhem, love and hate. These were the rocks upon which the South was built. They were the foundation upon which Caron County stood. If you had occasion to ask some of the citizens of Caron, most of them would tell you those things were in the past, that they had been washed away by the river of time that flows ever forward. They might even say those things should be forgotten and left to the ages. But if you had asked Sheriff Titus Crown, he would have said that anyone who believed that was a fool or a liar, or both. And if you had an occasion to speak with him after that long October, he would have told you that maybe the foundation of Karen was rotten and fetid and full of corruption. Not only corruption of the flesh, but of the soul. That maybe the rocks that the South was built upon were shifting and splitting like the stone Moses struck with his staff, but instead of water, only blood and ichor would come pouring forth. He might touch the scars on his face or his chest absent-mindedly and lock eyes with you and say in that harsh whisper that was now his speaking voice, "The South doesn't change. You can try to hide the past, but it comes back in ways worse than the way it was before. Terrible ways." He might sigh and look away and say, "The South doesn't change, just the names and the dates and the faces. And sometimes even those don't change. Not really. Sometimes it's the same day and the same faces waiting for you when you close your eyes, waiting for you in the dark." Now, this is a good example of the author's, at times, poetic use of language, and how dark history is always there in the action of others, even if some just want to try to ignore it and hope it goes away. But the main thing he brings up in this, and I think this is what makes it such a great book, he really touches on it isn't only a community or national collective when it comes to the past, but also an individual's personal history, how it can lead to choices and actions in the present. The best example of this is the main character, Titus Crown. Crown was a very good FBI agent, but he has this terrible experience on his last case. And it leads to how he reacts, as in returning to Karen County, in some ways trying to get away from that experience, and how it affects his job, his family, and his love interest, you'll find in this book. And I will say this, I stay away from spoilers in these reviews. I think that's one of the great things about reading, is that discovery, if you will. But what happens to him that you will learn on his last case with the FBI would certainly leave scars on anyone. So I will say, this is just a good police procedural where we're hunting a serial killer in a small community. And in that sense, maybe I'm selling the book a little short if I just say that, and I hope you're not seeing that as something, because what I felt like at times is that there was a little bit of the Alex Cross books, for example, in Titus Crown, just a little bit maybe, and the whole idea of the cat and mouse and catching and going after the serial killer, what have you, and discovering who the serial killer is. But it's so much more than that, this book. This book touches on a major themes like the escalation of violence, when the dark past is ignored or celebrated in a small southern community. How a past abuse can create monsters that only find joy and ecstasy from hurting other people. One of the great lines, it's very short in the book, is hurt people tend to hurt people. And from this, from being hurt, it can lead to everyone is capable of unspeakable violence, whether it be emotional or physical pain, if the right emotional triggers are pressed or cultivated over years of abuse. And that I think that's really what this whole book is about. I mean, you can just read it as a simple book about catching a serial killer in a small community, but it's so much more than that. And I think that's what elevates it so much, in my opinion, from just a run of the mill thriller or mystery, is this whole theme of how we celebrate the past at times. We don't realize how much violence and damage that it did to others when we're celebrating history, and especially the South, what went on, and where we can ignore it. But as the author says, it just may come bubble up to the top again. The same with abuse, how people are abused are likely to abuse others. And also, in some ways, I think what I like about the book is how with damage, when you become damaged or something horrific happens to you, how you react to that may be an emotional trigger for you doing something unthinkable. So I rambled a little bit there. I do apologize for that. But I really think that's the one thing I took from this book. And I enjoyed the story. I enjoyed the chase. I would say no spoilers again. It's an okay, third act, if you will. And that really I started to think about it more. And I was these themes coming up over and over when I was reading this, and also just some wonderful poetic language that the author uses. And I'll say this too in closing. This book was up for Goodreads Best Mystery or Thriller, and I thought it should have done a lot better myself personally in the final vote. I mean, it was a finalist at least, but still, I voted for it, and I would hope others see this as a really great piece of fiction. A fun. It's what I love about good fiction. It's a fun book. You enjoy the storyline in itself and find that entertaining, but it also helps you to become a little more introspective on things too, and how we have got where we have gotten. So this is Benny the Bookie once again.